Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. So here we are with our first Beyond Success, the Spiritual Blueprint. Very exciting. And I've got a very special guest. And as you're going to see as the story unfolds, I don't think I could have picked a better first guest because it really exemplifies what this show is about. So no further ado, I'm going to bring on Christina Smith. Hello, Christina.
Hi, Glenn. How are you?
Welcome. Wonderful to see you as always. We've known each other for a number of years. I don't know.
A long time now.
Yeah, like
about 10?
7 years, 8 years, something like that. Who knows? But I've seen what you've created and was very impressed by it. So as soon as I started this show, I wanted to reach out to you. And for those watching, I'm going to give a little background about you, a little overview. And this is a beautiful bio, and it captures your experience very well. So if resilience had a face, it would look a lot like Christina's. As a child, she survived a life-threatening accident that left her with third-degree burns on 70% of her body, 80% hearing loss, and a bleak prognosis. But she defied every expectation, excelling in school and turning every "you can't" into "watch me." Her career began in law before she carved out a name in corporate sales and marketing, eventually launching her own agency in 2019. Christina has faced some storms, divorce, debt, loss, but also found deep joy, love, and success. Even with decades of resilience behind her, the last 2 years tested her like never before. So today she shares her journey, proving that true success isn't just about surviving, it's about soaring. Yes. Can you believe that's you?
I feel like I've heard about 50 live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there we are. It's I think, a good place to start is really, where, at the beginning of this last chapter, right? This last big life event that really tested your resiliency. So, what were things like before that? Because you had worked many years to get to a good place. So what were things like before the carpet got pulled out? And we'll get into that later.
Yeah. Well, I guess I hate to bring it up, but COVID, right? We're all so over that. But I think going into COVID, we're in a really good place, and coming out of COVID, we're in a much better place. So COVID was good to us. We purchased property, and that just doubled in equity. So we made millions of dollars on that. And then the business, whilst it got knocked around like every business did, we're a marketing agency, so everybody needed to move online. So we lost some clients. We lost a lot of clients in retail, hospitality, obviously, but all the corporates and that, they needed to move online. So we were able to, a whole basket of new brands, and it really tested the team. It was great. It sort of filtered out the team, the ones that loved growth and change and that, which is what we have today. So it just, we came out of that. Eric, my husband, he and I were just looking forward to a really whole new chapter of our life. We were going to travel. We're actually for the first time thinking about retiring, which was, a big achievement in itself.
Yes.
And so we were sitting pretty at that point, looking forward and looking positive.
Yeah. So everything that, and that in itself is interesting. I think it's a good example of kind of the resiliency. It's, there's the, if you talk to successful people, one of the things that they always say is that they don't really see problems, they see opportunities. So when COVID
in the
hit,
worst of times,
right? I mean, somebody's making $1 million no matter what's happening. So it's like if you can adapt and change, and actually I heard this from a wildlife expert of all people. He said, after studying nature for many years, I think it might have been David Attenborough, it was somebody very famous. And he said, you know, it's not the strongest that survives, it's the most adaptable, you know, and that's what you guys did right through COVID. You adapted and grew. So, I mean, we haven't even gotten into the meat of the story, and we're already seeing, you know, an example of how you took advantage of an opportunity, you know, and adapted your business to expand during a very difficult time, which is impressive in itself.
Yeah. And yeah, it definitely was a challenging time. Challenging was the new word, but yeah, it came out of that great, and you know, which is a bit of a different story to a lot of other people. So we are very blessed and very lucky. But you know, life changes, right?
Life changes, and yours changed in a big way. So, what transpired, you know, that really shook up what you had put in place?
So I guess, you know, and I just be honest, I haven't said this out loud or spoken about this really, Glenn. So so October the 28th, Eric and I, you know, love my life, all that sort of stuff, and we were just having the typical Saturday morning. Got up, went to Bunnies and cafe with the dog, and did all of that. And in the afternoon, Eric we'd had a laugh because some neighbours had brought some stuff over, and we he came into me and he said, "Oh, I've just cooked early dinner. Come on out. I'll go out on the balcony and wait for you." And I said, "Yeah, just send an email." And so I walked out to the kitchen. Eric always used to leave the 2 glasses. He didn't touch any. We used to try to limit our glass of wine, so you'd leave it until I came out. So I came out, poured the wine, walked out into the back balcony, and he was dead. He was yeah.
Wow.
And so all of a sudden, in less than 5 minutes, it was gone.
And life changes dramatically right then. So, yeah. That's
so from there, that pushed me into a really dark place, very dark place.
I can imagine. It's you know, I mean, you know a bit about my story, so I've been to some dark places, and I haven't experienced loss like that, so I can imagine, and I'm sure everybody understands, not fully understands, but you know, it just touches our hearts when we're like, okay, wow, this is real. And you know, when I was talking to you ahead of time, I mentioned to you that as difficult as it is, I like talking about extreme situations, because then you know, a lot of times in life people compare. So they're like, well, you know, oh, I've been through difficult times, I've this, I've that, and you don't understand that my life is really difficult, you know. And that's the trick that kind of keeps people stuck, is when they fall into that. Well, you don't understand, my situation is really extreme, you don't understand. And so I like talking about extreme situations because it makes it a lot harder to do that, you know. When somebody sees you go through something like that and you still were able to move on, you know, and we'll hear more about your story, but it's pretty hard to sit home on your pity pot and feel sorry for yourself if you were able to move on from that.
Well, move on. So it took a while. I went to a really, really dark place. I hit the alcohol. I mean, I guess the blessing was that I had to get up and go to work the next day, but that was awkward in itself. And so, you know, people knew that I just lost someone and they didn't know how to behave. I didn't know how to respond. Everything was a blur, probably. But I got in there. I've got a most beautiful son. He supported me. He stepped in, took over the business, an extraordinary guy. And so but the thing is, I'd go to do what I had to do, come home, but then I would just drink myself silly, you know, cry all night. It was really bad, and this went on for some time, to the point that I just think I remember really clearly this. I mean, I'm thinking 3 months or so. it was like that. You know, I really didn't go anywhere or invite anybody in, except for I just had some beautiful people around me. I had my best friends Karen and Robert, and my son obviously, and also some neighbours stepped in and did my lawns, and did everything. They just sort of kept life going around me, which is
Wow.
and I had one or two mentors, the Gary and a couple of other guys. So, but it was that ugly, and I hated myself, and I wanted to die, and I wanted to get. I didn't have a purpose anymore. It didn't matter how much money I had. Didn't matter how much success was just worth nothing when you are in that position. So, I remember to this day, I'm probably a bit nutty because I just talk to myself sometimes, and I remember having this conversation where I just I'm very good at making decisions very fast, which is not to everybody. Sometimes the company team don't like that, but I just said to myself, just get on with it. Either just get rid of yourself, like just end this, or get your shit together and pull yourself together. And I just had to have that conversation. I did. For whatever reason, I decided to get my shit together, and that is where I guess I reached out to my commercial skills of what I've done to be successful along and apply those. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's that's a big deal. What in the real pivotal points in my life, I've hit those points, and really a lot of life's decisions come down to that. It's very simple. We overthink and we complicate things, but if you want to get closer to the truth, you simplify. You want to get further from the truth, you complicate. And a lot of times when I'm playing around and navigating my way around staying stuck and all this stuff, and then all of a sudden I go, okay, Glenn, what's it going to be? Are you going to do this, or are you not going to do this? Like, really? Because this playing in the middle game just isn't working. Pick one. It's your choice. Pick one, and when you really get down to it,
so powerful.
Most of our life choices are it just comes down to do it or don't. So, I think that's something that we're going to see more and more in this show, those pivotal moments where it really comes down to, that soul searching, going deep within and saying, like, am I going to move forward or am I not? Like, and just being honest with ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, I when I look at successful people, they do that too. They have just as many setbacks. In fact, they have more setbacks. But they do have that turning point where they just say to themselves, like, make a choice. And I wonder why everybody can't do that. I wonder what is it that stops people doing that, or that makes them choose.
Honestly,
I guess that's why I want to. If there was anything I could inspire, I just want to inspire people, even one person, to make that choice.
Yeah, and I think
that it works.
And I think people watching this hopefully will get that message, because really, I think the main reason that people don't make that choice is because we're kind of walking through life unconsciously, surfacey, distracting ourselves, just going on and doing the next thing, and an idea will come up and be like, okay, I really need to do this. Oh, well, maybe tomorrow. And we just kind of move on, and we don't just stop and really get down to brass taxes and go like, okay, wait a minute here. Just time out. What is going on? And as difficult as tragedies are, or extremely difficult situations are, a lot of times they can kind of push away all that stuff that distracts us. It's like all the surfacey stuff starts popping like soap bubbles, and you're like, oh my, it doesn't matter that the electric bill was 2 days late. Who cares? Like, let's really look at life and see what's important here and make some, serious decisions.
Yeah, I do get frustrated, just even in a normal environment when people just make these excuses because they're sitting there, they're holding themselves back, you know. But I think the reason a lot of people they just don't know how, they don't know how to get out to make that choice, right? And I, being in business, I was privileged to learn these 3 techniques, and I found that I use them for business. I use them when I want to make another $1 million, or I want to, you know, turn the dysfunctional situation around to something in business. I use them, or, you know, a client issue or whatever. But I found myself using those techniques too, and they're really simple, and there's no, you know, really simple stuff to get myself out of this, you know, I suppose, very depressing, very ugly place.
Yeah,
And you
very,
know,
very simple, but very profound.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And you know, I guess I wouldn't mind talking about those techniques because I think that they are so simple.
Yes, I
You
think a
know,
lot of people could learn from you. I would love to dive into those if you're willing to share.
yeah, absolutely. Like, okay, so I am a very visual person. Obviously, owning a marketing agency, I'm very visual. So, um, I have to see a way out. I have to see what I'm trying to achieve before I can even think about how to. And so vision board is something that I've done all my life. And vision boards, I do it for business. I've taken clients for it. Like I often client will be sitting there telling me all these problems and all these reasons why they can't do what they're doing. And I'm like, okay, let's just get a magic wand. So if you had no things, like what would that look like? If you had $1 million, if you had 10, if I gave you a check for $10 million, what would you do right now? How would
Yeah.
you spend it? And just having all of those objections taken away and just seeing a clean new sky. So I am very much into vision boards. I buy magazines, which my you know, partners, or like my current partner who I tell you about is just like, don't spend all that money on magazines. But I rip them up into 1,000 pieces and I put them up on my vision board. And then I see, you know, I see the number that I want to make in revenue. I see what I want my life to look like. You know, I want it to look like this. I want to be in Italy. I want to be having a bowl of spaghetti in Italy. I want to, you know, I want my family to be happy. Like this is what happiness looks like. My family, you know, and it's a weird exercise because you know that you're so far from that. Right? You don't have no idea how I'm going to get to Italy, and you know, let alone get the time to do that. So you do this vision board, and then what I do is once I've got that up there and I'm really happy, and I start to feel excited. I start to feel that, you know, life is beautiful. And then even though there's a big gap between where I am and where that vision board is, especially if it's got like you know, a flash car or, you know, a $65,000 diamond ring, you know, I haven't achieved that one yet. But I then do 2 things. I basically brainwash myself with simple, free, positive affirmations. Like I actually type. I type up my own affirmations and I stick it all around my house. Like, you know, I am. You know, abundance is coming my way. I am. You know, I am healthy. I'm happy. You know, all these things. And then I basically watch YouTube videos. You listen to all the audio tape Insight Timely where I met you,
Yeah.
all of that type of stuff. And while I'm doing that, the only other technique is the list. And this was the thing that really pulled me out. Um, when you're in a dark place, you're very unmotivated, and it seems really hard to sometimes even lift your finger. And so I would make a list at night that the next day when I wake up, that one thing that is not negotiable, and these are the other things I'd like to do. So I dump everything onto that list. It could be 2 pages, but at the top of it was one thing that was not negotiable. And I just, when I got up in the morning and I didn't want to get out of bed, I just knew I had to do that one thing, and then that would flow into all the other things on the list. So
Now, was that usually a big thing or just a small thing to get you rolling, or did it vary?
No, it could be, pay that bill. It could be that you haven't paid yet. Or it could be just ring that person that you keep putting off, or it could be face that client, that you didn't want to face. So it could be deal with that staff issue that you didn't want to do. Could be something simple.
Okay. So it could be something simple, but it
It's
sounds like
normally something simple.
but it's usually something that you don't really want to do.
Totally. It's something that you just know you've got to get done.
That's a beautiful point. Like, I don't think I've heard it phrased that way before, and it's very specific, and I can see how that would help people, because it's like there's this theory of have you ever heard eat the big frog first? No. So there's this thing I heard, and when you start talking about eating frogs, it sticks in your head, right? So I heard if you have 3 frogs to eat, a big one, a medium one, and a small one, eat the big frog first. Like, because you're not going to eat the small frog and then want to eat 2 more that are even bigger. It ain't going to, this is not an enjoyable situation. So eat the big one first. So it just, they're talking about just doing the most difficult thing first. But this is a different slant on that. It's not necessarily the size, which I think it's a unique way to look at it. And I think it's an important, helpful way to look at it, because it's not so much the size. It's just something that you don't want to do, because
definitely,
so it can be something simple, but as soon as you do something that you don't want to do, you've gotten over that hump. And then you can kind of go with the flow, because other things other things aren't going to be as difficult as that, maybe, even if it was just a little thing.
Yeah, my father used to always say something I never understood until I got into business, and that was he used to say there's always a price to pay, right? It's always a price to pay. He said you either pay it up front or you pay it at the end. And it's the same thing like with that list. Just do the thing pay the price now. Like, just what is the pain? What is the thing? It might be tiny, but it's painful, or it's hard, it's just something that you keep putting off. Do that now, and it really does shift that whole momentum of life around, because you can strike it off your list, and it's like, I finally got that done, right? Or it was never as bad as I thought it was, right? Or it's about getting yourself moving forward, and just having, you have to have your mind and your action aligned, and that's why I'm constantly brainwashing myself with those affirmations at the same time as working my list, because like, I've been a big fan of mentors all my life, and it is so important to have people around you, but at the end of the day, you've got to be that mentor for yourself. You've got to do it for you, and there's no excuse. We live in a world that's abundant. Like, we live in a world, yes, there's a lot of negative stuff, but there's more opportunity in this world than there's ever been before. It's with the internet, with just governments, like, they get crammed for the bad things they do. And believe me, I'm one of the first people that is always, counting the government, especially in Australia. But there's also things that we can do and get help that we'd never have been able to get 20 years ago. So
yeah, it's amazing.
I just find it, yeah.
So, that was another thing that jumped out when you were explaining what you did. It's I've noticed this talking with people myself is, like, I'll do something. I've done similar things to you, where I've put notes all around the house, where I just inundated myself with spiritual teachers, or, just positive food, positive mental information and food. And
I love that.
Yeah, it's interesting how many people will kind of, they almost, when you talk about it, they think it's kind of ethereal. It's like when you say, like, kind of out there, and they don't really actually take the physical action to do it. And that's what the difference is, you know, that you described. It's like you brainwashed yourself by you know, getting that positive food into your brain on a consistent basis and posting notes around your house and picture and just like that's the same stuff that I did. And it's, you know, it's like sometimes I'll get off a coaching call, you know, and then 2 weeks later the person is right back where they were. And it's like, okay, well, what did you do? Well, I tried to remain positive. Okay, well, that's not going to work. Like, you know, we're physical beings in a physical world. Let's take some actual action to implement it. Yeah, you know, print out. Like I have a little book of quotes, like a PDF that people can print out and cut them all up and stick them all over their house, you know, just like you're talking about. And that's one of the reasons why I made it, because it's a physical action that you're taking, and even doing that physical action and putting them up around the house changes you, because you're putting action, you're putting energy towards who you want to become, you know.
Yeah, and I had to lose weight about 5 years ago. Like I had to lose a lot of weight because I was like, oh my God, I'm not even going to say my weight on this. But anyway, I put on a lot of weight. But it was two things that got the weight off, you know, and I still have to lose a lot of weight. But there's two things that got me down from that level. One was putting the right food in my mouth, and then the other one was exercising, right? And so when you realize that's not rocket science, everybody in the world knows that it's what you put in your mouth that counts first, and then exercising to make you feel healthy, to get healthy. So this is the same. What you put in your brain is all this. And do you know what I really found, what was quite interesting is, and I found this all my life, is that the very people that think they're like the amount of people that made fun of me and that you know, think that I'm like a bit weird because I do this, because I do, you know, because I'm into vision boards and I'm into all this stuff, and they're like, oh, okay, Christina, she's a bit weird. But they're 3 years down the track, they're in the same position they're in, employees and companies, and I've moved this far forward, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to keep getting upset about these people who keep, but you know, making me feel like an idiot, because life has proven to me so many times that it works, and it totally works. So you got to believe in it as well. So yeah, the food is putting that positive thoughts into your mind. It's really hard to do when you're not positive, and but the way to make that move forward is to do the list, make the list, tick one thing, two things, and be okay with that. Be okay that because you just get to a point where you get that traction and you start striking more things up your list because you're feeling more positive, and it just it gets you out of that hole, gets you right out of that hole.
And that's another good point too, is like, you know, a lot of people keep themselves stuck by being very judgmental about what they're doing. Like, oh, you know, like you're such a capable and high accomplishing person that, you know, other people that are capable and high accomplishing, that you know, if they do one or two things in a day and that's all they can do, they're likely to compare to themselves to who they were before, you know, and be like, oh, I used to do 30 of these things in a day. Now I can only do 2. And that will drag them down. You know, your best is different on different days. And
you know, I do want to correct you on one thing there, Glenn. You know, you know, you keep, I love you for that, but you keep saying I'm high accomplishing. Do you know what? They're just saying, you know, if I can do it, anybody can do it. But in my case, it's absolutely true. I have burns all over my body. I'm deaf. I honestly cannot hear. Like, I'm totally deaf, and my team will tell you how deaf I am. You know, I speak funny. I do all these things, and you know, I'm high energy, but it's, you know, that's some things that what people don't like, you know. So I'm raw, and like if I can do it, 99% of people out there can do it, you know, and because they've got much more than I have, and I'm just grateful, but it works, and I tell you why it works, and I would say that, my business is in the best position it's ever been, even though I've had the worst 2 years of my life. But by using that formula, my finances are, are great. My family relationship, which has always been my life challenge, are probably in the best position they've been. My son is extraordinary. He's taken over the business. He's really he runs it much better than I have to admit. and just more importantly, I met someone else who's completely different to Eric. He's the most extraordinary strong man, and that's one of the fears that you get, is like, would I ever be worthy of finding that love, finding that relationship again? And yet I have. And Joe Bradley is his name, and he's just extraordinary, and I love him. And I'm finding happiness in a whole new place. So yeah.
And that's what it's all about. Finding happiness in a whole
No
new
rocket
place.
science.
And that's what it is. It's a new place. It's, that's why, like that, the little things always jump out at me, and because I find them important. And it's, so it's, Eric was such a wonderful man, and your new gentleman is completely different,
Totally different. He's a
and when you
farmer.
say that, I think that is so cool, because it's like, well, I think it's wonderful for you. I've known you, so I'm very happy that you found love again. And, that in itself is wonderful. But I just find it so cool that he's different. He's so different, because like, that just means that you opened up to your next chapter. You're not dragging your past with you. You're not looking for a replacement. It's nothing. And I think that is so healthy and so beautiful, and such a good sign, that how different he is.
Yeah. And he keeps going around telling everybody that a wild, crazy city girl, took an innocent, beautiful farmer. Totally the opposite, right? He's very successful. He's the chairman of the board, and of the dairy. He's really, really a leadership role in the dairy industry. He's incredible, but he's totally different. He's very traditional, old-fashioned, that sort of stuff, and that's what makes life great. We're very lucky to be able to make new lives within this one life.
Yes. Yeah. And it's, a lot of times people, when they're going through difficult times, I think this is one of the reasons why that jumps out at me so much, is that people are like, oh, I'm never going to be the same, or things will never be the same.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, no kidding. Like I mean, I could drop a water bottle and life isn't going to be the same. I mean, it's not supposed to. It's not supposed to be the same, So it's that opening up to what is the next chapter that's right for me, and just putting your best foot forward. And I think it's important, just to mention that, it's not just that you have good techniques for getting yourself out of it. It's the big picture, that you even implemented techniques, like a lot of people will just sit there and just be, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know. But you slowed down, and you used what you've learned to make you successful in the first place, and just brought in that technique and allowed it to take you into that next level. And it's inspirational. It really is. I love it. And I know it's weird saying inspirational, but it is. I grew up in a little small town in Massachusetts, and was an alcoholic for 20 years. So it's like, when people look at me and they're like, well, I hope that they get from me the same thing that they get from you. And that is, if Glenn can do it, anybody can do it. If Christina can do it, anybody can do it. I'm not special.
Yeah. And also it doesn't go away, right? Like in the sense that adversity keeps coming and you still get setbacks. But I think, you know, you if there's only one ingredient, it's perseverance, right? And you know, I think that's the secret to success. Is I've just seen so many people in my life give up that one step before, like that they do all the 80% of the work and then they give up. They just don't persevere that last part. And yet the ones I've, like, even staff that I look at now and I go, look at you now compared to what you were when I met you. They just persevered. Like, they just kept taking the knocks and they kept getting it. They get excited about the knocks now. I think the difference with people who are successful, they get excited about the punches. Like they have their moments where they go, they scream and vent and get a glass of wine and whatever, but they pick themselves up and they get excited about it. And I think that is, everyone should be able to do that, right, Glenn? Or
well, I think we have to teach ourselves, because it's not what we're conditioned to do in society. I think society, it's acceptable to play the victim in society these days, and it's just, I think you're right. I think it's that, it's like, I've talked about when you're really working on yourself and you're really doing the right things, you drop into that flow where it is exciting when the knocks come. Like I've been in situations, out in the business world as well as in the personal world, where I'm sitting in a situation where in the past it used to trigger me or take me down or react in a negative way or something. And I'm sitting in there and I see it and I'm like, okay, I remember, I'm the observer of what's happening. And I'm like, I remember when this would have taken me out, and I'm good.
Absolutely.
Like,
I love that.
And this is so cool that I'm good now, like this is awesome. And it's not only is it, and this is in the middle of taking a negative blow. So not only does it not feel like a negative blow, it's actually empowering, because you're literally seeing how far you've come and how much more capable you are. And it just makes you want to do more,
Yeah. And like what's just going through my head then when you said that is it's just experience, right? Like if you want to be an Olympic swimmer, you need experience. You need to get in that pool and swim. So if you want to be someone who can manage adversity and can manage stress and manage these things really well, you need experience doing that. So each time you get something, like the first time you get it and it wipes you out, and somehow you don't know, but you got back on the bike and you're pedaling again, and then it get knocked off, and like the more you do that, the more you be very conscious of what you did to get back on, how you got forward, and you start to use that as, it's just another layer of skill to make you a better person.
I just saw my son Mateo go through this like last week or the week before or something, and it's so true. It's like a lot of times if you go, this is kind of in alignment with what I was saying about what's socially acceptable now. Like if you go out into society and you say, oh my God, I experienced this huge tragedy or this big setback or this real difficult situation, 90% of the people are going to go, oh no, you poor thing. Right. And it's like, and when it basically, the energy of that, what that does is it kind of goes like, oh yeah, this wasn't your fault. And it's not a matter of whose fault it is, but it's just
like that.
But like you have it's kind of like they reinforce your right to be down instead of lifting you up. So there's really no growth through adversity. They get the experience, but they don't grow through the experience. And I was telling my son now, like he's in a situation where he went through a difficult time and he worked through it and it shook him a little. And I saw it shake him. and he worked through it. And then he went through another difficult situation, very similar, and he was fine. And I was like, I says, you know what you did? You grew through your experience. You didn't just go through it. You grew through it. And you came out stronger and better on the other side. Now you know you have more confidence in yourself. You know you can handle adversity. And that's going to serve you well moving forward. And I think that that's, you know, if the listeners can hear this, right? It's like, you got to go through stuff. Life is going to donkey kick you. So, and you have to go through the donkey kick. So if you got to go through it, you might as well grow through it, you know, through if you got to go through the negative experiences, you might as well grow through them and become a better version, stronger version of yourself on the other side.
Yeah. And one thing I feel I have done well is I embraced help. Like I've had mentors in my life. You, Glenn, were one at one point. And we talked about some advice you'd given me that helped me, you know, when I could have probably been a fundamental ground when I went through the death with Eric. But I also have, like, Gary Hope, he was a mentor, my last mentor. I've had mentors in my life, but my last one, he was like you know, the hardest they come. Like, he was the hardest I've ever met. And, you know, I would literally say, this has happened to me. And like now, even with all my experience, I'd be knocked down by something. And he's like, you know, oh, poor you. Like, okay. Like, you know, like, he was just like, I'm like, what the hell? Like, no sympathy, no. But the thing is, so good for me. And you really sort of, you can go back and you can go, oh, well, I'm not talking to him anymore because he, you know, he doesn't, you know, lift me up. Or you go, you know what? Okay.
Yeah, that's,
who gives a shit? Let's get on with it, you know? Let's and I'm gonna go and have one glass of wine, I'm gonna knock myself out, and then I'm gonna get up in the morning and go with it. Right. So
that's interesting too. I had an experience like that too. When I mean, really my biggest pivotal moment, and I've had several, but was getting sober 20 plus years ago. And that when I did,
so hard.
It was, I had my first sponsor was like that in recovery. And it was just, he was like, all right, I'll give you 5 minutes to just complain or whatever, to get it off your chest or something. But that's it. Because like, I can't listen to you complaining for very long, you know? And then I'd start talking and he'd interrupt me, go, never mind, I can't make it 5 minutes. Just shut up. You know? And, like, and it was like, I was sitting here thinking, like, wait a minute, you know, but it was exactly what I needed, though. I didn't need somebody to tell me it was okay to be on the pity pot. I needed somebody to, you know, say, let's get moving, you know?
Okay, can I got to share this one with Gary. He's probably going to kill me, but I you know, I was in a crowded place, and this was before, way before my last, you know, Eric thing. But he said to me, I'd put on the weight, and the business is, you know, like not where I want it to be. So I went to him, and I'm paying, right? So I'm going to find someone. I've got money. I can pay for someone to help me. So I went out and I went to his office, and he, you know, sat there like this, he let me go for about an hour, and I just told him, you know, everything that was so bad about my life, and you know, how, you know, all my pain. And I remember him turning around to me, and he said, yeah. And he turned around and he said, you know what? He said, yeah, all he said was, you know your problem? And he said, I can help you, but you know what your problem is? He said, you're fat and your business is fat. And that's all he said. I'm like, this is the guy I'm going to pay to help me.
Wow.
And it was the best thing he ever did. Like that next morning, I was up at 4 o'clock. I had to get out there and walk. You know, it was like the wash on, wash off thing. Like before he would work with me on the business, I had to work with my weight or myself. And but I could have walked out of there and gone, you know what? I'm not paying for that. But I'm not. But right. And he really, you know, made a huge difference to my life. Just you know, I got the weight off in 6 months. I got 10 kilos off or something, which again started to make me feel better and whatever. And yeah, so I'm just saying that mentor, like there's someone right at there's always people that would want to help. And like if you can't find someone, just ring me, because it's just
I call them
everyone
spiritual
has a
punches in the
great life
face.
ahead of them.
Just a spiritual punch in the face. And like
I like
every difficulty I was in, there was somebody there. Like you said, there's people to help, and there was somebody there that gave me a spiritual punch in the face. And it stings at first, but if you stay in the game, that was like, I was going through a rough time with the custody of my son and stuff. And I got a spiritual punch in the face. And afterwards, my coach at the time said, he says, they were laughing at me, because like, I flipped and had to let some of it out. But they were like, what's funny about you, Glenn, is like, when you really get a shot that stings, like sometimes like it will trigger you and you'll go, and it's just this, it's like you're walking through hell. I mean, you would just, but the thing with you is you don't stop there. You never disconnect. You work through whatever it is you got to work through, and you stay committed to moving forward. And then somehow, once you burn off that initial whatever, and you come out the other side, and they told me it serves me well. And I've seen it with a lot of my other clients. And when I see it with my clients, I point it out. And I go, I know that I punched you in the face spiritually there, and it just, and it stung and it hurt. And sometimes people get quiet. Sometimes they lash back out at me. Sometimes they start blaming me, and whatever it is, I know what I did. So I got to kind of just sit there and hang on for a minute, and, and just pay attention. And the ones that can stay with me and come out the other side, which is just about all my clients, very rarely does, because most people have heard my podcast or something. So they kind of know that how I am. So people,
open and honestly,
people who aren't really interested in doing the hard work don't usually contact me. So the one, so usually they just stay in there, even as uncomfortable as it is. They come out the other side, and boy, the growth that they get out of there is amazing. It's wonderful.
And I will end by saying one thing. When you do get, when you feel that you're getting successful, whatever that is to whoever, but for me, it's that balance between finance and love, and happy relations. It's those spiritual, like I have my son who runs the business. He's harder on me than anything. Like he's so hard, and he's always criticizing me, and it's like I get criticized more. I've got a board who are tough as, like they give me those, I'm constantly being, like, hey, you're doing this wrong, or you're doing this, you're not doing this. So I just feel like I just sit back and laugh sometimes. Like I just, you have to become very humble to your own journey, because, and my new partner is the same. Like the challenges don't stop coming, but it's getting to a point in life where you love those, like you're okay with that. Like the challenges actually are rewarding. So yeah. Anyway.
That's it. That's it. I think a perfect place to end. So thank you, Christina.
Thank you,
was
Glenn.
Phenomenal. And I appreciate you being my first guest. Such a wonderful, exciting.
You can go up there, like start here, you can go up from here. All the new people will be.
This is gonna be tough to follow. But thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Christina, for being here. And hang on, Christina. We're just gonna play the outro, and everybody else. Okay. I'll see you soon.
Yeah. Okay.